Hi guys, how you doing? It's been a while since I've posted anything, but I reckon I'm gonna show y'all how to do some reloading. I know there's some reloading videos on YouTube that are a lot better than mine, so if you want to watch them, I don't blame you, but I know whenever I'm trying to learn something, I'll watch as many different videos made by as many different people as I can just to see all the different techniques and stuff people use. And so I'm going to show y'all the techniques I use for my reloading. And here I've got a few different kits, and I plan on doing one for each. This one right here was given to me, and that's what got me into reloading to begin with. Given to me by a buddy. That's 38 special. This one's an older one, and it's what we call a hand loading kit. Now that's what I'm going to be doing today, is a 38. I also have 270 Winchester in hand loading and 9mm Luger in hand loading. I am also going to do some in 380 for the press, but we'll get to that later. There's pros and cons to each way to do it. Like these little hand loading kits, you can actually, I work a weekend job where I'm by myself for 8 hours, and as long as I push buttons, nobody will care what I do as long as the buttons are pushed on time. So that's what I do on Sundays when I'm going to be alone all day, is I just sit around and make bullets all day. But that's one pro to the hand loading. The con to the hand loading is you've got to use typically spent casings that come specifically out of the gun you're reloading for. Another con to hand loading is there are only certain calibers that you can get in these kits. That's the reason why I've got this 380 in a press kit, because they don't make, to my knowledge, a hand loading 380 kit. But I plan to expand my calibers a little more. In this press loading, I'm planning on getting a 223 and a 40 caliber for the press load. And I'm on the fence. I don't know. I'm going to get a 45 Colt, but I don't know if I'm going to hand load it or press load it yet. Another con to the hand loading is the noise. You got to use hammers. I don't know why it's not called hammer loading, but you got to use hammers, and you know you're making all kinds of racket. Press loading, my wife loves the press loading kit because I can sit here all day long and make bullets and not even make a sound. But so today we are going to focus on the 38 special. There are a few things you're going to need other than the kit. Just for making the bullets, you're going to need a hammer of some kind or a couple different hammers. You can use mallets like this, which is what I started doing. I had this one, I'll show you here in a second. I had this one for a specific purpose, or a couple specific purposes, and then I had this one to do a couple other specific jobs. But now I've upgraded to these. This is I believe it says it's an 8-ounce claw hammer. but it's only got one claw. But this took the place of the little mallet, and I like it more because it's, well, for one, it's metal, so it's a harder surface, and it's more, there's more weight to it, but it's more balanced, and I just find it more controllable. And I've got one of these, just Harbor Freight daggum hammer. A soft face mallet is what it's called. A Pittsburgh soft face mallet. And I like it a lot because it is way heavier than the mallet, the bigger mallet up there, and it does two different jobs. And also, if you can find them, you can take the heads off, the faces, and interchange them with, you know, to suit other needs. They just screw in and out like that. But anyways, these are the hammers I use. You can do it without this, but I like to have this. Just a red, or it don't have to be red, just a plastic tumbler cup. Shoot, you can use solo cups, but I like to have this one so that way I always have a cup, and it sits nice on top of my gunpowder. And the gunpowder I'm using, I don't even know exactly where it come from. That same buddy that gave me the kit here gave me this Hercules Red Dot smokeless shotgun powder when he gave me the kit, and he told me I could use it for the 38, and I did, and it worked, and I've been using it for all my pistol calibers thus far and not had a problem out of it. It works just fine, and I've made thousands of rounds and it still ain't empty. It's a 1 pound container of it, but you just kind of, it don't have to be all the way full, but you're going to have to stick a little scoop down in there to scoop the gunpowder out. You're going to want some kind of block of wood. It don't necessarily have to be this. This is just a deck spindle that I just cut down that I can use. This just keeps you from damaging whatever surface you're using. You're going to need primers for 38 Special. 38 Special uses small pistol primers, and a lot of, actually all of my pistol calibers use this so far. My 380, 38 Special, and 9mm all use small pistol primers. These particular ones are CCI number 550 Magnums. You're going to need projectiles. What I have today for the 38 are, I don't know if you can see that, I live in Tennessee. I went to the Outpost Armory in Murfreesboro and picked up some berries. 357, 125 grain flat point. This was a 100 count bag for $10.59. You're gonna want some cases, some spent casings. Good thing, that's a good thing about a revolver too, is it always holds on to your casings. you don't have to go searching for them after you've shot, and it's kind of distracting to be shooting and trying to pay attention to where your cases are so you can go pick them up when you're done shooting, done firing. But what I'm going to be using for these casings were actually 357s that I shaved down to be 38s. I made a little device. They actually have specific professional devices that you can use to do this, case trimmers. But I didn't have a case trimmer, and I was just doing an experiment. So I went to the hardware store and got a steel spacer sleeve, and I cut it down to the right size, and then I would just stick my 357s in there and then grind them off, and then took some sandpaper and made them all flat. And these are what I call them 357 non-magnum shorts, just because I like to keep my actual 38 special casings and my ones that once were 357 casings separate. And since they're no longer actually 357s anymore, I had to kind of come up with a new name to write on the bag. So I call them 357 non-magnum short. So that's what I'm going to be using today, because that's all I've got. Okay. You're also going to need some kind of case lube. You don't absolutely, like, people will tell you that you've got to have actual case lube. I've used gun oil, and I mean, right now this minute I'm going to use rim oil. People tell you you can't do it or you shouldn't do it, but I've been doing it my entire reloading career, if you will, and it's been working just fine. So inside a hand loading kit, you'll get a couple things, a few things actually. You're going to get your scooper, your dipper, whatever it is you want to call it. And that's for your gunpowder. So you just drop that in your cup. You get a de-priming rod. You get a priming rod. You get your die, if that's what you want to call it, or a case sizer, or whatever they want to call it. I don't know what this thing's actually called. I call it a chafer, and it just kind of bends out the case a little bit to accept the bullet. You got your, I call it your safety stool. It's not really what it is. It's where the bullet sits most of the time. It has a hole in it. It keeps you from accidentally, you know, shooting yourself in the face while you're making a bullet. And then you got your tool here that does two jobs. It primes right here, and then it seats the bullet right here. But the very first step to doing this particular method is, I like to put the bullet in there in the safety cup. Let me zoom in. Put the bullet in the safety cup. Take your chafer. You stick in there with this hammer. You give it a few good whacks. Then you want it to be flush. It's got a little rim right there, the chafer does. You want it to be flush up against that rim. Then you just pop it off, put it back down in there. Now this right here is only, I mean, I don't know about only, but this is for 38. My 9mm and my 270, you don't have to do this for every round, every caliber, but for this particular caliber you do. So you take your priming rod and put back in there, or your de-priming rod, I'm sorry. You put in there, and then you take your hammer, give it a good whack, and usually on the first try it comes right out. Alright, now you oil it or lube it, whatever you want to call it. I just stick my finger down in the oil and kind of rub it around it. You take your die or your sizer, whatever you want to call it, and it's got two ends. It's got a flat end and a funnel shaped end, and you want the flat end up for this part. You stick your bullet in it. I'll take this mallet with the rubber piece. You line it up real good and you whack it. And sometimes it takes a couple whacks. I like to take the decapper safety cup, stick on top of it, line it up good, give it another good whack. And what you want is you want it to be flush. See that? I don't know if you can see it. That's not exactly flush. So what I do, I don't know if anybody else does it or this is the way it's supposed to be done, but I take my priming rod and I line it up real good over the primer hole, and I just give it a few good whacks with this little 8-ounce hammer. Until it's nice and flush. Now you get your priming tool. You stick there, and you take you a primer. Stick in that center hole. You turn your die upside down with your bullet on the bottom. Take your priming rod and drop down in there, and you take your hammer, the 8-ounce hammer. You give it a few whacks. You don't want to be hard on these whacks because it will pop a primer in your face, and that is not fun. It's scary more than anything, but sometimes it'll burn your hand a little, but it's not fun to have a primer pop off right in your face when you're not expecting it. But eventually, when you do it enough, you'll learn, exactly what pressures to hit it with. And what I've always thought is cool is whenever it's primed correctly, usually it'll pop off. The whole thing will pop out. When you stick it down in there, it kind of wedges itself down in there. And then whenever you prime it correctly and it's at the correct depth, it'll just pop itself off that priming tool. You want to check it and make sure that your primer's flush. If it's not, you can put it back on there and give it a few more whacks. Very light wax. Alright, so now this casing has a primer in it. So from now on, it is always going to be in the safety cup. So now you got the funnel side of the die up and the primed casings side down in the safety cup. You get you a spoonful of this gunpowder, and you're supposed to do a nice, completely flat, even scoop of it, but since this is shotgun powder and it's 38 and I've been doing it a while and I'm trying to make them a little hot, I do kind of extra big knot level scoop on these 38s. And you pour it down in there. Then you take a bullet, a projectile, I like to flick it to make sure I get all the gunpowder out and down into the case. You drop your projectile down in there. You put your bullet seeder, which is the other side of the priming tool, down in it. And I like to use on this mallet the nylon side for this part. You hold it, kind of give it pressure, downward pressure to hold it tight. You take, and you just whack it a few times. And I don't know if you've seen it in the video, but it went down, it went down, and then it bounced back up. And whenever it bounces, you've usually got it where it needs to be. So now we have a bullet. But since we took the Schaefer and opened up the mouth of the case, you're going to want to take your sizing die and turn it over funnel side down, and it has a crimper in there, and it'll crimp that shell onto that projectile. And for this I use the rubber side of this mallet. And once you've done this enough, you'll learn what pressures to apply. But you want it crimped enough to where you can't push the bullet any further down into the case, which I have. And there we go. There is a 38 special. After you've made your bullets, and you've made, you know, how many ever you want out of what you're going to do, you really need to measure them and weigh them. And I'll do what's called the shake and weigh. I'll hold it, and I don't know if you can even hear it, but I'll hold it. Yeah, you ain't gonna hear that. I'll hold it next to my ear and I'll shake it and see if I can hear the powder in there. Because once you've made about 20 or 30, you know, you can't remember what steps you've done to each one, even though to make a bullet you should have done all the steps in a certain order. You still can't remember for sure if you had. So I do what I call the shake and weigh, and I'll shake the bullet and then I'll weigh it. And then I'll measure it, and you want to measure the overall length and the trim length and make sure it's within specs. And then if you can, which is really nice with pistols and revolvers, you can do what's called a chamber check, and you just want to make sure that it freely goes into the chamber. For a revolver, you just open it up and let the cylinder fall out, and then you can do a chamber check. But with a pistol, you can just, a semi-automatic pistol, you can just take it apart, and just all you need is the barrel. You just hold the barrel and drop the bullet in it. Alright guys, I'll see you next time. I believe next time I'll try to do a 270, I suppose, because all I've got right now is 270. I've got one shell, one case for a 270, and I have no projectiles for a 9mm. And then of course I'll do that 380 ACP on the bench press. Alright guys, thanks. Hey guys, I'm back. I thought I was going to end the video, but I decided, since I only made 4 rounds for that demonstration. I'll go ahead and show y'all my post reloading inspection. So and there's also a few things I forgot to mention in that video. Like, for one, on this bullet seater, when you first get one, you're gonna want, I ain't gonna do it because it's gonna mess mine up. Mine's set where I want it set. But you're gonna wanna unscrew this set ring and then screw the seater all the way in, and then whenever you seat your bullet, put it in there, and then take the sizing, imagine there's a bullet in there, take the sizing die out and kind of see where the projectile is sitting in the case, and if you're not happy with it, if you want it further down, then you unscrew the rod to make it go longer, which will seat the bullet deeper, and then tighten the ring back and try it again. Another thing I forgot to mention is a kind of important thing if you're going to be reloading a lot, and especially if you're going to be hand loading, is you got to get a bullet puller. I got this off of either Amazon or eBay, but it wasn't very much, like 14 bucks total tops, I think. But it's allows you to deconstruct a bullet. It's got collets. It comes with a bunch of different ones for a wide range of calibers. But what you do with this is you got it open like that, and you got your collet there, and you put your bullet in it, and then you'll put this back on, and that'll tighten up against that collet, and you'll hit it and hit it and hit it until the projectile comes out of the case. But I ain't trying to deconstruct that bullet, so we ain't gonna do that. But you're definitely gonna want one of those. It is worth the money. And I think it's kind of funny, if y'all ever watched I forget if it was RoboCop or RoboCop 2, one of the original ones from back in the 80s, the scientist lady gets upset about something that the sorry about that. The scientist lady gets upset about something that the creators of RoboCop are doing, the company that owns them, and there's a chip or something sitting on the table in one of the scenes, like a computer chip, and she takes a bullet puller, which I guess back in the 80s seemed like a futuristic hammer, and she is using it as a hammer and smashing that chip. And every time I see that clip in that movie, I just have to laugh at it. But anyways, okay, so on to our pre-shooting post-loading inspection. First off, you're going to need a scale. I use just a kitchen scale. It's made for weighing milk and crap to cook with. And you're going to need a micrometer, and ideally you're going to need the pistol or the gun that you're going to be shooting the said bullets you just made out of. This is my 38. This is 38 that I'm going to be shooting those bullets we just made out of. So you can put that up. You can put everything else up. And every bullet has every caliber has certain specifications. You can find them online if you look them up. Particularly for a 38, you're going to want a maximum overall length, which is from the tip of the bullet to the bottom of the rim. For 38 special, it is 1.55 inches or 39 millimeters. And then you're going to want to measure the trim length, which is from the base of the rim all the way to the end of the case. And on a 38 special, that is 29.3 millimeters. And you're going to want to write that down. When you're reloading, you're also going to find that a little kitchen funnel will do you good, because there's going to be leftover powder in your powder cup and you don't want to waste that. So you just take the funnel and stick it on your powder container, pour it down in there, and then bam, you ain't wasted no powder. Alright, so like I said earlier, I like to do what's called a shake and weigh. And to do a shake and weigh, you hold it up to your ear and you shake it and see if you can hear gunpowder in it. Some of them you can just feel it, the difference in the inertia when you shake it. You can kind of feel the bullet powder, the gunpowder inside the bullet. You can kind of feel it moving around. I weigh mine out in grams, but there's other denominations you can weigh it out in. And there's other types of scales you can use to weigh them. But each bullet kind of has a different weight range. I find for 38 special, between 12 and 14. And 9mm is kind of around the same range, 11 to 13-ish. I forget off the top of my head what my 270s weigh, but and then 380s for some reason weigh roughly around 9 grams, which is kind of surprising to me. I didn't think there would be that much weight difference between a 380 and a 9mm, but it turns out there is. But what you're going to want to do, of course, you're going to do your shake and weigh and make sure they all weigh in the correct range that you want them to. See, like that one weighs 14, so that's still within range. If you're got a bunch of them weighing 13 and then you get to one that weighs 17, then you know that's when that bullet puller is going to come in handy, and you're going to want to pull that bullet apart and just either remake it or just wait till later and make it in your next batch. So all these, besides that one, weighs 12 or weighs 13. So since I only made the 4, I'm done with my scale there. Then you're going to want to measure them. Measure the max trim length and the max overall length. And like I said, for a 38 special, the max overall length is 39mm. So you're going to open your, you're going to need you a set of, I call it a micrometer. Some people call it other names, but I call it a micrometer. So I need it to be less than 39 in its overall, and that is 34.92. And then in its trim length, I need it to be less than 29, and that's at 27.87. So that bullet's within spec so far in the weight and the weight and the length. So this one is at, I'm sorry, I did not realize that whole time that was upside down for y'all. So that one's at 34.91 in the overall and 27.28 in the trim. And remember, we don't want to go over 29 on the trim or 39 in the overall. 28.04, 34.96, 34.83, and I know it kind of sucks, but 28.39. I know it kind of sucks doing this, especially whenever you make a lot. And you know, you make 100 rounds and you gotta sit there and do that to every freaking round. It kind of sucks. And to be completely honest with you, every bullet I've ever made on the inspection part has not been out of spec. It's always measured the right length. Even the 357 non-magnum shorts I made, they all are in the right length range and weight range. But you still want to do it because just in case, you know, that one time you don't do it is going to be the one time that one's too long or something and it messes up your chamber. Alright, now you got to do, speaking of chamber, a chamber check. This is an empty gun, but it's not going to be here in a second. I'm going to be quiet so you can hear this sound, because this sound is what you're going to want to hear. And you're just going to want it to go freely into the chamber like that. You want it to make that sound. You can kind of hear them. So it freely chambers. Let's see if it freely unchambers. All four of them just fell out. And that's what you want. Whenever you have a semi-automatic, you can just hold the barrel. After you take the pistol apart, you just hold the barrel and you just drop it in there and drop it back out. Drop it in there and drop it back out. Unfortunately, since I hand load 9mm, and I'm not quite sure where all my 9mm cases come from because I just walk around the range and pick them up. And I have no way of telling if it come out of my gun or not. Unfortunately, those do not always free chamber. And if they don't free chamber, then you run into problems. So it's better just take those apart and remake them. I'm thinking about honestly getting the press die set for the 9mm and then selling or giving somebody my 9mm hand loading set, because when you press load it, factory resets the case to guaranteed factory specs. But anyways, that is really all this video now, I promise. Maybe, I don't know. I'm kind of an idiot sometimes.